What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Sports Podcast. As always, it's your host, Don, and I brought my baseball gurus with me again, Brandon and Gabe. What's up, guys? Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey,
Hey,
how you
how's it
doing?
going? Good. Thanks for having us. Yeah, as
Abs-
always.
Absolutely, absolutely. For you guys that are listening on YouTube, definitely make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button. It definitely helps with our getting our content out there and with the YouTube algorithms. And also, thank you guys as well if you're listening on Apple or excuse me, Spotify or Apple or any of the other audio only streaming services. But without further ado, we've got a few weeks of baseball in now, so that's why I brought my baseball gurus in to talk some good old baseball and just kind of do a heat check. Just we've got a good decent body of work now. Now we're about 20 to 30 games into the season. Want to talk about some players and teams that based off of their performance now and a few other things. So without further ado, we're going to kick things off with division leaders. We have some division leaders that were projected to be leaders, and we have some division leaders that weren't projected there. So we want to see what's sustainable and what's not. So wanted to start off probably just kind of going down the list, and maybe you guys can tell me some division leaders that are sustainable and maybe some things that might change within the division. I think it's best we probably start off with the AL East. We got the Yankees up top, 16-6. They're doing a lot of things well. They're getting obviously they've got Anthony Rizzo doing his thing and a couple other guys that are fired up and then some guys that aren't doing so well. But the pitching staff as well is doing great. What do you guys think about the AL East?
The pitching staff for me, that was where a lot of their success came from last year, and that kind of surprised me looking back on their stats. They really had a similar build to the Giants, whereas a lot of like power and pitching oriented, keeping the ERA low, and then situational hitting. Seems like they're doing the same thing again right now. They're getting the power where they need it. Their big dudes are hitting. Judge looks fantastic. Rizzo, that short porch and right is doing him well. Stanton's, at least he's batting 250, right? Like, so he's hitting the ball somewhat. But yeah, I think it's pretty sustainable. They have a good bullpen. Nasty Nestor, this guy King that came out, multiple innings of work. They already have Chapman and Green. So, I mean, if the starters can go 5, even 6, they can hand it off and keep the game, pretty tight from there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm actually really digging the Yankees so far. They're about maybe one or two injuries away from the Blue Jays, kind of to get a big separation in the division. We saw Ryu go down, and I think that was huge. And if he's not coming back, in the next couple of weeks to his normal form, the Yanks can kind of pull away a little bit. Their established bullpen arms, Chapman and Green. If they could just do kind of what they've done over the last couple of years, they're solid. They got some newcomers in King and Holmes and Castro. I like as well. So their bullpen is basically lights out. I think at the end of the year they're going to be a top 3 in the league. And then Judge looks like he's hungry and he's looking to see what happens with that contract because I think he might prove it. He thinks he might prove us all wrong, and I'm still wondering if he's going to get that money. Rizzo MVP kind of level, and I thought those days were long gone for Rizzo, and
Yeah.
Donaldson, I think he's going to turn it up as the games get more important. So I like the team, and let's see what they go. Let's see where they go.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know too much about Nestor Cortez. I don't know how sustainable it is in terms of his innings per pitch or what his history is. But obviously, they're getting with that bullpen, as you mentioned. King, Loiza as well, Chad Green, Chapman. All you need is about 5 or 6 innings, and they're getting that, and they're getting solid contributions from all these guys in the pen. So yeah, I definitely think it's sustainable. I'm aligned with that, and I think a couple of other guys will start to hit even better with Stanton and LeMahieu and a couple other guys too as well. Gleyber Torres, I think he'll continue to get better. I know he had a rough start, but things have turned around a little bit in the last week or so. So yeah,
LeMahieu looks
Yankees.
damn good right now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it looks like he's back. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we got for AL East. And then probably more of not a predicted winner. Obviously, the White Sox and the AL Central were probably the predicted winner. But, obviously we got a lot of injuries there with Lance Lynn, Lewis Robert, Jimenez. Same guys seem like they always get hurt. So talk to me, guys. Talk to me. Twins, obviously, they're 13-9. The question for me at least is it sustainable? Is it rotation, right? You've got you got a lot of guys in the rotation that are overperforming and maybe they're doing great now, but is it sustainable in terms of the second half of the season and whatnot? So what are your guys' thoughts on the Twins?
Yeah, I mean, as far as their offense, they have a lot of pretty good young talent. It's kind of a matter of them staying healthy and kind of growing into, major league performance levels like Max Kepler, Alex Kirilloff, Byron Buxton just staying healthy. So, you can see that they have a pretty legit lineup. We'll see what Jose Miranda can do. I'm really excited about him. He's going to replace Sano today. His minor stats are just absolutely ridiculous. So they have a pretty good young core. I said that the AL Central is pretty winnable division. If the White Sox stumbled at all or regressed or had some key injuries, and we're seeing that happen. I don't know how sustainable it is for the Twins to like run away or even compete because just like you said, young pitching, Ober's already hurt. Can these young guys really sustain what they're doing right now? But it's a pretty wide open division. I think around a 500 record, maybe 10 games over could end up taking it. That's my vibe on it.
Yeah, totally open division. And, at the beginning of the season, I kind of saw a little bit of regression from the White Sox, which I had the Tigers kind of, making a run at the division. And they're kind of down in the dumps right now. But I think it's a little bit of bad luck and it's still too early. And, a couple of their young prospects, just aren't panning out that much so far. But I feel it's not too long before La Russa loses the clubhouse. And, he has no
before he gets
business.
another DUI.
I was gonna say he has no businesses getting
sneaking a
DUIs
bottle
or
into the
managing
dugout.
clubs. But yeah, so I think that the Twins can get it. I mean, we got lots of love for Dylan Bundy. I mean, that's what was one of the most overhyped prospects that we've ever seen in the last 10 years, and he's off to a great start. Ryan's off to a great start, and then on top of the prospects that Brandon mentioned, they still have Austin Martin waiting in the rings. That's one of their top 5 draft picks that they got back for Jose Barrios. So
Right.
yeah, I think the Twins can definitely make a run at it, and then right up there is probably the White Sox and the Guardians. I think that's going to be one of those divisions, these 85 wins, and they're going to run away with it. Whoever gets that first.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the Guardians. I think Brandon in the past mentioned the Guardians as well.
Mm-hmm.
Super exciting offense, right? I mean, Jose
Yeah.
Ramirez is doing his thing. I mean, he's even exceeding his own damn expectations, right? Like he's hitting, he's making the butt of the jokes to Mike and wrapped around Bo Bichette fun. Like he's all year. Like I mean, if he continues to hit the ball like that, and Bo continues to struggle a little bit, I mean, there's no way Bo can put up Jose Ramirez numbers. I mean, he's hitting lights out of the ball. Then they got contributions of guys that were supposed to be one category supporters, if all, like Miles Straw, right? He was supposed to be a guy maybe you stream if we're doing the weekly matchups. Maybe you stream him during the week that you get stolen bases or whatnot. But I mean, he's getting on base. I think his on base percentage is like 400 right now, something crazy like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So him. I mean, obviously Stephen Kwan, Oscar Mercado. I mean, these guys are hitting the lights out of the ball. This Owen Miller. I mean, let's see what they're a fun team to watch, right? It's see what they can get for other pitching. Obviously, I've streamed Savali quite a few times, and I don't know why. I'm an idiot. He keeps like this dude. Like I mean, I'm like, okay, he's my candidate to like, okay, he's gonna bounce back. Maybe I'm a little bit too early, but man, I mean, he's getting rocked. I mean, it's like at minimum of like 6 earned runs every outing, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, the Twins, obviously, we'll see what happens there. And then next we have the Angels. I think they're controversial enough. They weren't predicted to be number one. I think it was the Astros and the Mariners, which the Astros and Mariners aren't doing terrible, but nobody expected the Angels to have this level of success, right? But I think that was probably predicated on, Mike Trout, is he going to stay healthy? What are they going to get out of Ohtani in terms of an encore? What are they going to get out of? I mean, they kind of, just threw a dart in terms of pitching, right? They got Thor, they got Lorenzo, like got guy from the Reds, right? So talk to me about the Angels, guys. What do you think? Is it sustainable?
I'm really excited. I mean, this is what I saw coming, actually, to be honest, was that lineup top to bottom. It's very talented. It's very underrated. We have Rendon. He's still not even really hitting that well yet, but, at least he's a presence in the middle of the order. Walsh still isn't really hitting yet, but you got guys that are like Ward. Trout looks fantastic, looks healthy. Ohtani coming around. The pitching is really, their bullpen, I think, is underrated. Warren, Loop, Iglesias, that's a pretty solid, 7th, 8th, 9th inning handoff there. Lorenzen, I don't know where this is coming from. I mean, if this guy can go 5-6 innings every time and just get a quality start or close to it, Thor looking good. I think it's sustainable. I don't know the challenge for the division, but I definitely think a wild card. The Astros at some point are going to come around. You know what I mean? They're too good of a team.
Sure.
But no, I mean, I think this is real from the Angels. I think we're seeing the potential of what everyone, saw, especially with Madden as a manager now too. He's getting everything out of these guys that he can.
Yeah, I think the Angels, like Brandon said, I don't know if division is in their sights, but definitely they're going to be competitive. Hopefully down to the end. It's just a super fun team to watch. But if you kind of lined up all the scenarios for them to be leading the division at the beginning of the year, everything freaking hit. Trout has to be healthy. Ohtani can't get hurt. Ohtani's not the same level as he was last year, but I mean, him being healthy and just having his presence on the mound and the batter's box is huge. And then to have Syndergaard, Lorenzen, and Sandoval just ball out on the pitching mound, which they've had a huge issue in the last decade finding reliable starters. All three of them hit. I mean, it just seems like sooner or later that someone's going to get injured and this team might take a little downward spiral. But so far so good, and they've built a good enough lead. And if they could just play 500 from here on out for the rest of the season, that's a wild card berth right there.
And also, it's a 20-year anniversary since that magical 0-2. Just a little tidbit of history there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I think the Angels definitely will bid for the wild card. Seems like the Astros, obviously, I think the offense ultimately will get healthy and get better, right? Kyle Tucker's already turning it around. He had a great series over the weekend, and he continues to get just get a hotter bat. Jose Altuve will get healthy. I think Bregman he started off a decent year, but I mean, I think he will start to produce better. Just the rest of the guys, right? Gurriel, I think he's hitting like 200 so far. It's typically around 275, 285. So guys will start to turn around for the Astros and the Mariners. So, but yeah, wild card is definitely not too far. For the sake of time, we're going to go to the next topic. Not too much controversy on the NL side as much as the AL side. I mean, the Brewers and the Mets and the Dodgers are number one. So we'll kind of leave that there. But next topic was now that we're kind of about 25 games into the season, let's talk about some hot players, right? Let's talk some hot players and some struggling players. Who are your guys out there that are just hot that you're watching and you're having fun watching, and then guys that it's kind of painful to watch right now that you expect to be doing more?
All right, well, I'll go ahead and start. I mean, it's really cool to see Trout healthy. I mean, you really don't have to say anything else other than that. I mean, every year that he's hurt, you hear someone else, oh, maybe Ronald Acuna or Fernando Tatis or Vlad Jr. are the best players in baseball. If Trout's healthy, we're not even 2 or 3 years from having that discussion. So as far as that goes, I mean, another player that I kind of like that has always been a constant kind of like fantasy waiver kind of pickup and even real waiver pickup is CJ Cron. I know he's playing in Colorado, but I mean he's hitting lights out, and he came up with the Angels way back when. Him and Trout probably came up around the same time, and it's really cool to see him kind of ball out and find a kind of a place. And it looks like in Colorado he's going to be a kind of a fixture of that lineup for a while. And then as far as on the pitching side, I mean it's always cool to see like Mad Bum. I don't think there's been like a more exciting pitcher than kind of Mad Bum that stretch, between the 2012 and 2016. That was awesome to see him. And then it's so annoying how the Giants will just kind of throw darts and hit perfect for Carlos Rodon. I mean, he's got a 1.17 ERA, and as a starter, he's averaging 15 strikeouts per 9 innings, and it's like lights out closer kind of K levels. And yeah, he's been just crazy to watch. So so Trout and then Cron and Mad Bum and Rodon, they're kind of like the hot starts that I've noticed. And then as far as the cold starts, I hate to keep on ragging on him, but Bo Bichette is just it's tough. It is tough. It's tough. I mean, I kind of saw it coming, and that's just a guy that if he's just in the lineup every day and hits 260, the numbers will be there. But just he's not living up to the expectations that the Blue Jays kind of had set forth prior to the season. And then another sad one is kind of Nelson Cruz. I mean, he was hoping to kind of stabilize the lineup around Soto, and so far he's hitting 148 with 2 home runs, and it looks like it's the end of the line for him.
Yeah, it's a sad day. One day Nelson Cruz will retire. It's sort of like he's
Father Time.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, man.
So unfortunately on my bums, I got Bo Bichette too. He might be turning around now. He hit a couple home runs last week or on Saturday, I think. yeah, I just think that sophomore slump's hitting him. His lack of plate discipline's kind of shining through. He probably has one hole in his swing that's probably being exploited now. I'll check that out later. But one for me is Spencer Torkelson. Man, this guy was supposed to be like Rookie of the Year candidate, supposed to be MLB ready. Looks trash. He's striking out like his K rates through the roof, not making hard contact. Brian Reynolds, man. In one of my leagues, I took him pretty early. I was really expecting, good plate discipline, high average. Again, just not hitting the ball. I don't know why. I got to look into that. Charlie Morton looks awful, and I was avoiding him in like all my drafts. I understand why people could be high on him because he's had a pretty consistent run, but I think the age is finally catching up with him. He's got like an over 7 ERA, so we'll see if he can right that around. As far as who's being awesome, man, Jose Ramirez. Could we say it? I mean, the guy is, best player in baseball right now, best hitter. I mean,
Right.
Could you say anybody else?
Manny.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's insane. Ty France, that's my boy right there. I got him in all my leagues. He's
Ty
like
France.
350. I don't know. Hey, I think he's a very underrated player. He's a very consistent hitter, 300 average. He's got a little pop. And I think that he's kind of like the driving force in that Mariners lineup. He's probably the most consistent bat that they have. Haniger's down now, so he's a big key to their success. And the last two are oldies but goodies, Rizzo and Verlander. Verlander looks fucking prime Verlander. I mean, like he's never even missed a year or whatever. And I think Rizzo's finally like getting to his own being in New York. He's really pulling the ball. I noticed like he's really trying to hit home runs over that porch, and it's working for him. I mean, we've seen it with like Granderson and countless other guys. They can kind of revive their careers there. So I'm excited for Rizzo.
Nice, yeah. A couple guys that, in terms of my bum or coach streak, I just have to mention Savali. Like, I mean, just for me, continuing to be an idiot to roster him and continue to put him out there. I mean, didn't expect him to have like a sub 3 ERA or even a sub 3.5, but surely didn't expect him after 4 or whatever 5 starts to have like a 9 or 8 run ERA. I mean, he's just getting absolutely lit up. So hopefully he turns it around. I don't know, but him for sure. And then my boy from last year, Jesse Winker. Obviously, we knew that there would be some reduction, in terms of performance, but not to this tune, right? He's batting, I think, like 205 or something like that. 0 home runs so far. Just kind of struggling to get on base as well. Jesse Winker, guy who's been struggling. And then also, like you mentioned, Jose Ramirez completely lighting it up. Anthony Rizzo, as we mentioned earlier, leading the league in home runs, I believe, 9 home runs.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's on pace. It's always fun to do this, right? In 20 games. He's on pace to have like 60 to 70 home runs so far. Something stupid like that, right? Anthony Rizzo just completely lining up. And then my boy, Big Country Joe Musgrove, right? It seems like he's had some favorable matchups. I'll give him that. He's playing Pirates, Marlins, teams like that, Reds, I believe. But he's getting the job done every single time. I think he's had like 4 or 5 starts. He's getting quality starts every single time, going at least 6 innings, and a decent amount of K-9 rate as well. So him, Manny Machado. We talked about Jose Ramirez, but Manny Machado's been doing his thing. So got to give kudos to your boy, Gabe. Manny Machado's been doing his thing. I mean, all the way across the board too. Again, to play the game in terms of stolen bases, I think he's got 4 or 5 already, which would put him, on pace for, 35, 40 bags, which won't be the case, but always fun to play that game, right? Manny Machado's been doing it great. Guys like Pablo Lopez from the Marlins has just been, phenomenal. A guy you've seen the upside, but just, the numbers, not to this tune, right? And then another guy, Pablo Sandoval, I think, from the Angels.
Patrick Sandoval. Yeah.
Patrick Sandoval.
Yeah.
Pablo. Yes, the Giants. Yeah, Patrick Sandoval. Another pitcher has been, pitching his lights out. So yeah, those guys are my Marcus Stroman in terms of my bums as well. I know he got awful. He's got that 3-year, 70 or 80 million contract from the Cubs.
He threw 7 innings. He threw 7 shutout innings yesterday. I think it was like 2 hits, and he just he had one bad start that he got trashed on by the Rays, and then he was at Coors, but he's actually not so far. He
must be a stakeholder. No. Yeah, for sure. So those are my guys.
Something interesting about Sandoval, really quick, is he's got one of the best changeups in the game. I did some research on what his success is. His swinging strike rate on that pitch is up there with like the Max Scherzer slider, that kind of stuff. Like it's just
right.
The deception on the pitch, and that's the key to his success. I kind of saw him coming as a breakout. Looks like he's really figuring it out. I'm happy for it.
Yep. So Hopefully, Savali can figure it out too. Uh, so we're gonna switch to the next topic. Great topic here is Asian player MLB history. So we flirted with talking about this in the past, and it was only right that we kind of dedicated a segment. Right, we talked about all the great Asian players that have come over at a very young age, and the older players as well. So have one of you guys kick it off and kind of talk about what that means for you in terms of guys that you watch and guys that you love watching in terms of Asian born players.
Yeah, so I just kind of got some fun facts here. I did a little research about Japanese and Korean, specifically players in the MLB. What was kind of a trip to me was that actually the first Japanese player ever was with the Giants in 1964, Masanori Murakami. And then it took 31 years later for Hideo Nomo to come out with the Dodgers.
Right.
It's kind of wild to think, like, where were these other players, for 30 years, just, they were playing over in Japan. I think that the game just kind of had to like speed up and get to the MLB level. It took some time. But then after that, Hideo Nomo, no hitter in both the AL and the NL. He was the first Japanese player and only to throw a no hitter until Iwakuma. Then some of the other greats, we've talked about Matsui. He's the only World Series MVP winner that's Japanese. Chan-Ho Park also with the Dodgers came out in 94. So Dodgers kind of pioneers, first black player, first Japanese player, or second Japanese player, but first in 30 years, first Korean player. Pretty cool to have that history here in Los Angeles. And I think it shows like the diversity of the city too. I think we have the most Koreans here in Los Angeles of any other city other than that's a city that's in Korea. So it's really kind of representative that, LA would have these groundbreaking, players coming through. Also, just talking about a little bit. So I've mentioned my grandfather before on the podcast. He's near and dear to my heart, passed away last year. But so during the Korean War, he actually got drafted and he was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. But at the time, he was a minor league baseball player. So he actually got called by the USO. He didn't have to go to the front lines, and he toured around Japan after post-World War II, teaching baseball to Japanese players.
Awesome.
And he would laugh about like they'd never seen a curveball before. Man, you should see them try to hit that thing. But it's kind of interesting that about 10 years after that, we see the first Japanese baseball player come to the MLB. Then now after the evolution of the game, we look at, I think, the World Baseball Classic about how they're hyper competitive, maybe the best in the world when it comes to playing small ball. And then this now stream of like very, very high talented players, Ichiro. Now we have Otani. Who's the new guy that just came up
Suzuki
on the Cubs?
Suzuki.
He looks legit. His on-base skills are awesome. I just think that the Asian experience is a really integral part of the game. I think we mentioned before, the game's better when we have these international talents and players. We've seen it with Latin culture. I think now we're getting to that point where we're going to have dominant Asian players coming over to the game and having longer careers than we did before.
Yeah, I mean, cool stop in California. I mean, it's not for this podcast, but it's in Manzanar, kind of up to 395. So it's a Japanese internment camp, and they rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II and kind of forced them to kind of live there while the war was going on. But I want to go visit a few years ago, and then they had like kind of like the outdoor bungalows for like the schools and stuff. So they were kind of teaching young kids, and there was a big old baseball kind of mural in the wall, and it was just kind of like the basics of baseball with the positions and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool to see, an unfortunate circumstance that happened way back when probably lead into their culture adapting, America's pastime. But, as far as kind of the research I did for a couple of players that I had, you mentioned it spot on. I mean, talk about fun watching the Dodgers and kind of all the international players that they brought up. And one of them that was just super fun because it was one of my earliest memories was Hee-Seop Choi.
First baseman.
Yeah, Dodgers got him over in the Paul Duca trade, and
the Marlins, right?
Yeah, from the Marlins. Two things ended up happening. Everyone loved Paul Duca, and this opened the door for my favorite Dodger probably ever, Russell Martin. I don't know. Russell Martin was a super cool player, but Hee-Seop Choi, first full season with the Dodgers, he, for whatever reason, he had like the first kind of half up until like the beginning of July, he was on pace to have like a 40 home run season, and then just kind of fell off. and
Right.
then was no longer an MLB player after that. But it was cool to see him in 2005. They had the home run derby, and that was like the first and only time they branched it off into one player representing a country. So I think Andrew Jones represented the Netherlands, and Bobby Abreu won it that year representing Venezuela, and then Ortiz was repping the Dominican, and Hee-seop Choi was there participating for South Korea. So
Very
that
cool. I
was
forgot about that.
that was
Yeah.
cool. And then another one that I feel we don't talk about much is Shin-Soo Choo, from the
Mhm.
Oh,
Reds and
Indians.
the Indians.
Yeah,
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 so
that's the Indians. Yeah.
yeah, I like to look at kind of whenever I'm looking at like Hall of Fame statistics and whether a player should belong in the Hall of Fame. If we're talking about longevity, I always kind of just filter their results from age 25 to age 35. Kind of the first year you were kind of a legitimate, centerpiece of a lineup, till probably the end where you were kind of the old veteran, but still, getting productive at bats. And his full season average during that span was 95 runs, 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, and you remember he was more of a leadoff guy, with a 125 OPS plus. So I mean that was a really really solid baseball player for a long time, and kind of sucks that he just seems to be forgotten about outside of kind of rabid baseball fans.
Who did Hee-seop Choi? He ran over somebody on the base paths, or and
Yeah.
he
I think
was it
Pujols.
Scott? Was
I
it
think he injured.
Pujols or
I
was
think
it
he injured
Roland?
Pujols. I
Was it
think he
he injured
injured
Pujols?
Pujols in
Okay,
2005 when
yeah,
Pujols. That was probably the best year Pujols would have had he not,
yeah.
ran into him. And I think it was like a forearm injury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
pretty cool.
And another guy that had tremendous amount of success, of course, the Yankees, which we don't really like to talk about, but Hideki Matsui, right? Coming over here to put in a solid, 9 to 10 years. Um, I think it was the MVP for the 2009 championship. A guy that just pretty much got it done. He had ice in his veins in terms of postseason play. His historical postseason batting average 312, 391 on base percentage, 541 slugging percentage. Just a guy that
Wow.
just got it done for the Yankees, right? And then you mentioned, the Channel Parks, the Hidey Nomo with that, I think was that nasty split finger that he had that just got the job done. That unorthodox delivery as well. Yeah, some good stuff. So I thought, it's only right. We transition into the World Baseball Classic from here, and then we'll go to the other topics. So obviously, we know this is something that happens, every 4 years. But COVID impacted a couple of things, but we want to talk to you guys in terms of how do you like the event? Is there any tweaks you might due to it, or is this something that you think that you'd want to keep the base, for them to continue and whatnot? So let you guys start this off.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start off. Yeah. So for the World Baseball Classic, it first started in 2006, and then it was um, it was won by Japan, and then they won it again in 2009. So that was pretty crazy to kind of see them kind of win two, and then the U.S. not even kind of finish being runner-ups on either of them. But
Right.
I mean, I love the event. I mean, it's so cool. If you look at like that 2006 Team USA kind of roster, and I'm not a big basketball guy, so you hear people talking about the '92 Dream Team and blah blah
The
blah.
Redeem Team and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. So then you had the Redeem Team too that was kind of the second coming of that. But that '06, U.S. World Baseball Classic team with like Clemens and Griffey and A-Rod and Jeter, and man, it was so cool to see basically an all-star team, the two leagues all-star teams playing on one team. So I
Right.
mean, the only thing that kind of sucks about the World Baseball Classic is you open up kind of that injury risk for the pitchers, kind of ramping up way too early, and I mean it's tough to see because I could kind of see the players' perspective on it, but the event is so fun, and I wish there was a way to kind of have like maybe minor leaguers or non 40-man roster players kind of eating up all the innings that time and kind of using that as a showcase to see like what they can do against major league caliber talent. That's how Dice K came up onto the scene, and a bunch of other players kind of got a start in the World Baseball Classic to kind of prove what they can go ahead and do on a big stage.
Right. I'll let you
Yeah,
go, Brandon.
yeah. So, as far as the WBC, I mean, I think it's great for baseball if you want to talk about expanding the game to new viewerships, whether it be international or even youth. Imagine if you're, say, your parents are like Venezuelan, you don't get a chance to see your favorite Venezuelan player, but you live in Los Angeles and then you get to watch, Team Venezuela. Or when I went, I saw one World Baseball Classic game. It was at Dodger Stadium. It was South Korea versus Venezuela. And I have to say that was one of the most dynamic environments at a baseball game that I've ever been to. I mean, it coordinated chants. It felt like a soccer stadium. The vibe is impeccable. It's like World Cup soccer, right? That's way better than Olympic soccer. Okay.
Yeah.
It just has a different vibe to it. Again, yeah, I guess the only thing is that, sometimes we don't get the best players because they don't want to participate. Yeah, you run the risk of injury, but a lot of these guys play winter ball, especially in Dominican, things like that, so that they're kind of already playing year-round baseball. They're staying stretched out. It's got to probably do some good for their timing too, to be playing year-round baseball. So I just see a lot of advantages. I had a fantastic time. I thought it was really cool. So I would love to go again when it comes around.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, in addition to viewership, I think it's just great for the players. More specifically, the players, it's a global sport, as we can see, right? More specifically for the
brand,
players
yeah.
that are coming, from other countries, right? The Latin-based players, the Asian-based players, they take significant pride in these games. Maybe it's the American-born players that, like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to throw the innings or, things of that nature. And you get that aspect of it, but these guys take pride in it. You can tell when they're playing the games, they are ecstatic. If for an inning strikeout, a home run, base hit, whatever, it's just a different level of energy from the international players. So I just think it's great for them, right? Obviously, they love coming over and getting paid to do what they love to do, right? But also they take significant pride in representing their countries, right? So I think it's great for the players as well as for the fans. So, yeah. So with that said, like we talked about the division leaders so far, in terms of some leaders that are there that were predicted to be there and weren't. Let's talk about some stat leaders. There's some interesting guys like Anthony Rizzo that is projected to get about 70 home runs. What are looking at the
new
stat
record
leaders,
holder Anthony Rizzo?
right?
Yeah.
Right. What are some of the stat leaders that are kind of popping out that that may be sustainable? Like maybe they might have a career year, or maybe some guys that it's not sustainable.
The biggest thing that jumped out to me, Kevin Gossman has not walked a guy yet this year. He's got 43 strikeouts and 0 walks.
Wow.
If he could even come close to that kind of a walk rate, he's got Cy Young written all over him. He's on a good team, just dealing right now. That just blew me away. I'm like, that's like Kershaw at his peak type stuff right there. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Video game stats. I don't know how sustainable, but I mean, if he could even pitch to 80-90% of that for the rest of the year, I mean, he's gonna be the best pitcher in baseball probably. J-Rod with the stolen bases on the Mariners. Where the hell is this coming from? He's batting like 7th or 8th in the lineup. They're just letting the reins off of him. He can't hit the ball, but once he gets on, he's running. So.
He's like Billy Hamilton. He's like, fuck it. You know what?
Yeah.
I might not get on base again. So I'm done.
Ever.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch for sure.
Your boy Romano. I think you mentioned him last podcast. He's got like 11 saves. Talk about like on page for like 184 or something. Like new record holder Romano for saves. We got new record holder Rizzo. Another kind of standout stat to me was that Corbin Burns is leading the league in innings pitched. For me, I was a little scared of taking Burns. I actually like his stuff over Woodruff. Just Woodruff kind of appeals to me as he just seems kind of more like that workhorse standard, gonna give you 200 innings type of a guy, and his arm isn't gonna fall off. But man, if Burns can turn out quality starts or go deeper into games, again, could be competing for a Cy Young here. That was the one thing that was missing from his game was how deep he could go. So if he can keep this up, good things for Burns.
Yeah. As far as for me, I mean, you guys actually nailed down the two that I wanted to talk about. Rizzo, I mean, I thought the days of kind of MVP level production were in the past from him, and you forget how, I guess, young he is. He's only 32. So he kind of reminds me of, as far as like a former Yankee and kind of come in there, the league wasn't expecting much from that player, but it's kind of like he becomes a new like soul of the team. But kind of reminds me of Swisher's little run with the Yankees that he had, where it's a key kind of lineup piece for them. And Rizzo's going to bring it with the club, but if he can throw up 35 bombs, that's a really nice player. And I don't see him kind of regressing too crazy as he gets into his mid 30s. So it's cool to see kind of Rizzo back into the form that, was there when the Cubs won the World Series. And then, Julio Rodriguez, I mean, what can you say? I mean, there's one thing that Mike Scioscia used to say way back in the day, that kind of speed never slumps. And, you can't help the team in any other ways. The one thing you can do is kind of hustle on the base pass and, try to change the game however you can. So it's really cool seeing Julio just being on pace for 80 stolen bases. It's kind of sad that, we look at the leaderboards at the end of the year and we see 35 as the league leader, and seeing anyone on pace for over 50 is always exciting. And hopefully the rule changes in the future with larger bases, and the pitch counts or the pitch clocks for the pitchers can kind of lead to more action on the base paths. But those are two guys that that the stats kind of jumped out, and they're really fun to watch right now.
That's a really interesting point about the pitch clock, how it could lead to a little bit more action on the base pass. I never really thought about it that way, because, you can't just sit there and stare at the runner and basically wear him out and then, throw a quick pitch to the batter. You're going to kind of have the standard rhythm, and the base runners might be able to pick up on that, get a little bit more.
There's going to be so much kind of nerds diving into that. It's like, Kevin Gausman never throws after 7 seconds, to first base. So, it's past 8 seconds, he's going home.
Right.
Right. I think you guys definitely hammered home all the points, right? With Rodriguez, his stolen bases, the saves, the ridiculous pace. And the crazy thing is, it's not even just Romano, right? There's I think Josh Hader's right behind him with 10 saves there. So I think Melanson, he led the league last year with 38, 39 saves. So these guys are on pace for 80 saves. So it's something ridiculous. I think Romano saved 75% of the Blue Jays wins. I think 11 out of their 15 or 6 wins. So something crazy like that.
Wow.
Another guy that's, I guess, a stat leader that's kind of popping out to me is a late bloomer. The Angels' first round pick in, I think, 2015, and Taylor Ward out of Cal State Fullerton. Guy's batting almost 400 right now, 5 home runs. I think he's got an OPS of 1,200. Just something stupid like that, right? So Taylor Ward, I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know a lot about him. I know that
it is.
Obviously he was a first round pick, but I haven't watched a lot. I know you probably have, Brandon, but
I'm pissed off at myself, man. I was looking at the Angels lineup. Ward was coming back from an injury. I got him in another league, but in the one that I'm in with you guys, I picked up Marsh instead, and Mike's just rubbing that in my face. I went to go drop Marsh, and he got Ward 8 minutes before I was about to grab him. The guy has awesome plate discipline, real power. He's a gamer. He wants to get better. He's basically like Joe Madden's little kid right now. He loves the guy. I can see why. He can play multiple positions. He can bat anywhere in the order. And I mean, just on base skills alone, as we always talk about, if he can't help it, take a walk. You know what I mean? And he doesn't strike out very much. He's going to be probably close to a 300 hitter. So I really like Ward. I think it's for real.
Yeah, I wonder how much Scioscia kind of impacted his development, because he was drafted as a catcher, right? So I wonder.
I believe he was, yeah.
So I wonder if Scioscia was just he's not a catcher. I'm a catcher.
I know a catcher when I see him.
This guy's too fast.
He's not hitting 212. Get him out of here.
His girlfriend's too pretty. He's not a catcher.
But it's a crazy ride for Ward, because I remember him being drafted as a catcher, and then they had him at third base, pre-COVID era, and then he kind of got lost in the COVID era, and then I guess he was the person that they made room for DFAing Justin Upton, and it's cool to see Ward balling out. So it's a nice little redemption story.
Yeah, I remember once upon a time when I was a child and I was an Angels fan.
Wow. Angels are for babies.
No, in all seriousness.
For the Dodgers, I see. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What is the saying? As a child, I did childish thing. As a man, I put child. No, in all seriousness, I remember when I would keep track of who they drafted, I remember okay, it's draft time. Let's go, baby. Who are they picking? And it's every other year, it seemed like they were drafting a fucking catcher. I'm like, all right, what the fuck? They were Ward. I mean, I'm probably talking about a 10-year range. I remember they drafted it. It was an Asian-born catcher as well. I forgot his name. I think it was 1 or 2 other catchers in a span of 7 years. Yep, Hank Conger. That's probably a wave before.
Conger, that's right. And I remember they had all of Yadier Molina's cousins. They brought over anyone who's Yadier Molina, you're on the team. We're gonna try you out for catcher. Let's give you a shot. If you have that blood, you might be good.
Yeah, and Napoli too.
Yeah, Napoli. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So they
And
love
then
themselves some catchers.
Maldonado, I mean, he ended up winning a Gold Glove. He's on the Astros. He's a legit, he's not doesn't do much with the bat, but he's a really good catcher. All the intangibles that you would look for. He's kind of like that Mike Scioscia catcher, right? Maldonado. Yeah, he bats
Right.
200, but he plays a good game.
He's a man's man too.
Yeah.
Oh,
the NFL
man.
draft term. What
He's
is
like
it,
smoking
Colin?
a cigar.
What's everyone's favorite NFL draft term? High motor.
High
There you
motor.
go.
Yeah.
High motor. Oh God. To say that
it's
he's
great.
not that talented.
But he tries really hard.
Yeah. So let's well, I guess really quick, another guy really quick that I've been watching too in terms of stats is Logan Gilbert. I think he's got like 5 starts, 5 starts, like 30 innings, about 30, a strikeout per inning. I think he's allowed 2 earned runs in like 30 innings. So another guy to watch. He just seems like he's getting a win every time he goes out there.
He's got that filthy sinker, right? Yeah. That's his pitch. He's a sinker bowler.
I believe so. Yeah.
I was actually gonna mention when we were talking about the Mariners and the Angels earlier, but I think that's the X factor in the division right there. I mean, he's balling, and if he can put Cy Young level stuff, I mean, I think he's the most important player in that division.
Wow.
Yeah. Big dude too, towering.
Yeah, and I mean, like their pitching staff's pretty legit. You look at Robbie Ray and then him coming 1-2. I mean, that's pretty nasty in a playoff series.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's get to a few of the hats that we like, right?
Yeah.
Let's get to it. Let's see if I can work out the technology here. So these are a couple. Talk to me about these, Gabe. These are ones that I know. But first, I know this is one of my favorites. I think we talked about this in the past. The classic or the Cincinnati Reds. Simple for me. Whether it's baseball, basketball, football, my favorite all-time combo in terms of color combination is red, white, black. So obviously, this has like tremendous appeal to me. But talk to me about these other two, Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big hat guy, so I mean, every time it's like my dad's birthday or Christmas, I just get him a hat and I buy him the type of shit that I would wear, but I'm not going to spend money on myself. So I'll get him, these 70s or 80s hats that, just so freaking nice looking. And, it's unfortunately now it's, I'm not a big fan of the hats that they have now, but yeah, I saw the Mets kind of roll out the other day, and they were rolling out with kind of the all black with the blue NY logo, and kind of reminds me, growing up and seeing the Mike Piazza Mets, and it's a pretty clean kind of look with the black jerseys. That was kind of an early 2000s thing, but what's old is new again, and it's cool to see that. And then just going back to earlier days in baseball, I was looking at kind of some of the hats that I previously owned. That Astros one down at the bottom, the burgundy with the classic Astro logo. I mean, I don't know what more to say. I mean, it pulled off the colors right. I don't know what color they have on this one. It's almost like a pink star, but they have like a tan kind of yellow, tan yellow star before. But I think Clemens and I think Pettit and Berkman and Bagwell and Biggio, when I see that hat, and I just kind of remember, the good times are, during that era of baseball for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's several too that are just iconic too. Maybe it's not even about a fashion statement, but hats you could throw in that B, that Boston B, and or the Yankees, and pretty much with any outfit, right? Obviously, if you're not a Yankees fan, you're gonna throw it on, but it's pretty much iconic, right? Outside of baseball, you see guys that don't know shit about baseball, they might have a Yankee hat on. But yeah, interesting to see. These are definitely some good ones there. I don't know, Brandon, if you had a hat or two that you.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Favorite?
I mean, for me, that original Marlins hat, I don't know if we can see it there. There we go.
Oh yeah,
that's
nice.
I just love that combo. And then also those teams were so cool. It was like, I was younger and it was like, oh, a new baseball team. Like, what's this? You know what I mean? So, and then it was kind of like, right? Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, absolutely. And like, who was the pitcher? He was
Willis?
amazing. Dontrelle Willis, D-Train, of course. Yeah, with the cricket hat. Yeah, it was like it was flagged out. Yep. I love D-Train. He was awesome.
Oh man.
And then obviously the old Brewers cap. Let's see if we can get it kind of going there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And what I love about that hat, it's like, it's the ball in the mitt, but it's also MB, Milwaukee Brewers, clean. If you look at it closely. Love the blue and yellow color combo. And then the last one I was going to say is I love all the old Pittsburgh Pirates hats. The one with like the little the square cap, you know what I'm talking about? Like the 1970s style one. And then particularly the newer, it was the red bill with the red lettering
Yeah,
around the
that was
black and
clean.
yellow. That's a really
Right.
clean hat. So those are probably my go-tos right there. Oh,
Right.
last
And
one, really quick. The vintage
yeah.
Expos.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
All blue. All blue.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, since Gabe won't say it, I know he wants to, but I like the Orioles hat, the throwback
Yes.
Orioles hat. I think it was
Yeah.
right from the 80s or 70s and 80s, but yeah, throwback Orioles hat, throwback Blue Jays hat as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, those are two other good ones. So we got two more topics to hit. We're gonna do our top three managers in the game, and we were at the 45-minute mark, so we'll kind of try to crush this through. So I'll just start this time. Let's start with Kevin Cash. And I'm just gonna say, not in no particular order. These are just my top three. But Kevin Cash, what he's able to do with the Rays, it just seems like the Rays are just ahead of everyone in terms of just their level of thinking, right? It seems like a lot of teams are just kind of watching what they do and they adopt it in terms of how they utilize the bullpen. Not even just the bullpen, just the strategic decisions in terms of like the splits on the offensive side, right? I forget the player that they split at first. The Asian
Andy
player, what?
Diaz.
No,
Oh,
not just him.
G-Man Choi.
Right, him. Right, phenomenal. I think
Yeah.
he hits like three something because of the strategic decisions that they make. Right, the matchups that they play. So I think Kevin Cash for sure. I like a Bob Melvin as well. I think the Padres have done well for themselves. I don't know how much of a hand he's had in terms of the GM moves that they've made, but right. I mean, they've had some injury players, some bad luck. Like Clevenger getting hurt. Now Fernando Tatis and his fucking bizarre ass injuries that he has. But it just, I mean, the show goes on. I mean, obviously they
Yeah.
have talent, right? The GM is, I mean, the owners they've been doing their part, but I mean, he's been, right the ship. He's been keeping everything pretty good considering the injuries and whatnot.
Except for that meltdown at the end of last year. But
Oh,
I think he can contribute a lot of that to the fact that a lot of these players are young, and maybe the second time around he can kind of guide them, say, hey, look, this is what happens when you don't listen to me, right? So how about we listen to me this time?
You do this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and my final guy I like, former player too, is Craig Counsell. I liked him as a player as well. High motor guy. Just no, I like he's done well for that rotation, obviously, and the hitting as well. So I think Craig Counsell is definitely my top three. So Kevin Cash, Craig Counsell, and Bob Melvin. What do you guys got for top three?
Cash is for sure on my list. Like you just said, they're probably the biggest brains in the room when it comes to the MLB and how to use players differently, matchups, platoons. Whatever they got to do to win, they do it, and they do it sometimes with the least amount of talent on the field, but they get the most out of it. G-Man Choi, he can't hit lefties. I mean, flat out. So just don't hit him against lefties. It's that easy,
Right.
Yeah. Scott Cervais on the Mariners, he's doing a great job. He's got his hands full developing a lot of young talent. We'll see if he can kind of, move them along and use them the right way, kind of protect them as he needs to, and then give them the exposure that they need to. They have, a killer system. They had a great record last year. They had a bunch of guys batting like 230 and somehow managed to win a ton of games. So I think he's doing a great job. And then my man, Joe Madden. I honestly think he started the whole Rays thinking outside the
Right.
box. Then he goes to the Cubs, wins the World Series, goes to the Angels. They're in first place. I mean, everything the guy touches is gold. Love his personality too. Like, he just seems like a really approachable guy, but he's going to tell you when you fuck up. He's kind of like like a father figure to these guys. But a very, still a player's coach. It's awesome. So I'm really excited. I was so excited when the Angels got mad, and I'm like, finally we have, somebody to replace Sosha. That's big shoes to fill.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely. You hear it all the time in the NFL with the coaching trees, but man, that Tommy Lasorda coaching tree, I mean, we lost Tommy last year. But yeah, I mean, that coaching tree from, it's got Dusty Baker, got Mike Sosha, Joe Madden, and then, just I'm missing so many players, right? At a certain point, it was like 7 players that you could trace back down to. I mean, so 7 coaches you could trace down to Lasorda. So that was always cool to see. Yeah, Madden's on my list, obviously. The one that I kind of I mean, you guys already know I'm going to say Buck Showalter. I mean, that's an easy one to say. So, I mean,
Yeah.
he's just what do they call a players manager? But the other one that, I mean, I got to give props because I knew exactly what the Braves were going to do. Is they were just going to give this terrible team to Brian Snitker and fire his ass. The second a more reputable manager came around, and And he had, one rebuilding year and then another kind of like a low 70s win team. And then ever since that, the Braves have been winning their division, against all odds. And here are the Phillies and the Mets stocking up. But, Snitker's been doing a great job at, kind of guiding the Braves and, without the same background as some of the other coaches have. And, the results speak for themselves.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean, the World Series, you can't argue with that. No, I'm saying you can't argue with the World Series,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And a guy,
Rick Renteria, he was the manager of the Cubs before kind of Theo Epstein and Joe Madden opted out. So, he was kind of hired to babysit the Cubs, and then they fired his ass. And then he got kind of hired to babysit the White Sox during their transition. La Russa comes around, and they fired him too. So,
he's like, good luck, Chuck. Just get Renteria as your coach, and then a year later you'll find someone legit.
Yeah, I love that movie, man.
I do too, actually. It's underrated.
Yeah, Dane Cook, right?
Yeah.
Dane Cook, Jessica Alba.
Yeah. That's why I watched it.
Yeah. Wasn't Dane.
Nah.
Another
side note, I saw Dane Cook in a stand-up like only a couple years ago, and it was hilarious because he didn't look like Dane Cook anymore, but that voice, there was no questioning who it was when he came out. He probably gained about 150, 200 pounds. He's a big dude now.
Damn.
Jesus.
And his brother's been robbing him blind too, right?
Yeah. He made a few jokes about that. I was like, too soon?
Yeah. I know he's got Dane Cook. I think I definitely seen Dane Cook like this, his special on it was like called the Circle of, or his most popular one, I think.
Yeah, where he's like in a stadium in the middle.
Yeah. And he's talking about the B&E and all that. Yeah.
Burger King Lounge, BK Lounge, all that. Yeah. He was funny, man. He had a good run. Speaking of good runs.
Yeah, right. Another manager that I love bringing up controversy just to grind your guys' gears. Kudos to AJ Hinch last year. Maybe he brought the trash cans with him, but I think he got Tigers. Tigers were almost a 500 team, and they had no business being near 500, like whatsoever. In our final topic, we'll talk. I think we touched a lot on struggling players and great players. So we'll talk about RIP to the batting average. Just to put things in perspective, in 2012, the league batting average was 255. 5 years later, 2017, 255. 2021, 244, and so far in 2022, we've had a lot of crazy numbers offensively, but league average is 233. So I wanted to pick your guys' brains on what are your guys' thoughts on that. Obviously, the players have said, fuck it, batting average is not getting paid to get high batting average, but just their approach at the plate is a lot different, right? So I wanted to pick your guys' brain on that, and what do you guys think of that?
Well, I think part of it has to do with just like bullpens nowadays, right? Is like we're even from 5 years ago, we're seeing a lot more specialized bullpens, a lot more division of labor, nastier pitches. Guys come in, they can only throw 100 miles an hour, and they have this slider that they can barely get over the plate, but they can give you an inning. And when you're going from, say Greinke's starting the game, and then he's throwing 90, and then you got a guy come out throwing 100 right after him, and then another guy who's got a 6 slider, and then another guy who's got an elite changeup. It's just so hard to stay, to actually be consistent because you're not seeing a guy 3 times to the lineup anymore. That's number one. Number two, exactly. We just see a huge shift in a lot of players. They're just trying to mash. The biggest example I can really think of is who was the third baseman? He was on the Cincinnati Reds and he went to the White Sox. Frazier. Okay. He went from like a near 300 hitter with really good plate discipline to batting like 212 just to trade for some power. Same thing's going on with Matt Chapman right now. They're getting paid to hit the long ball. It's what the fans want to see, blah, blah, blah. But if you really take it down, a lot of the reason why the game is boring is because you're not seeing these contact hits. You're not seeing movement and errors and the moving parts of baseball. You're seeing a strikeout, a walk, or a home run. So is it good for the game? I don't necessarily think so. I like to see contact hitters. I hope it makes a comeback. Lastly, there's a lot of changes with the ball too. So we had kind of like a dead ball last year. I don't know if that's affecting anything. Supposedly this year the ball's supposed to be a little bit more juiced. So we'll see.
Yeah. The big one I have, obviously the ball, just getting stability on the ball and, having a basic something that is a standard instead of something. I mean, they still hand make the ball. So the variable for a change on the ball is extremely high. And then I wouldn't put too much weight into the numbers so far. I mean, it's early May, and I think it's still snowing in some places. So it's just like it's ridiculous, like how the weather works on the East Coast. I mean,
Yeah.
and then as far
Short
as
in spring also.
yeah, that's true too. But I mean, I think the big one is obviously the bullpens, but on both ends, I want to say. So what I mean by that is, you have more specialized pitchers, and now you'll have a guy that can't do anything against righties, but he'll get every lefty out, no problem. But with that roster spot that you have to, kind of have for your kind of bullpen specialists, because bullpens are like 10 deep now, you lose kind of a bench player that you may have in that case. So I think what you're seeing a lot now is kind of the teams sacrificing that roster spot and bringing in another bullpen player. And then you're seeing all around the league, you're seeing like some scrubs batting 8th or 9th, hitting like 160, but they play just good enough defense, and they bring stability to that one spot that they occupy. But
Or
I
multiple
remember,
positions.
yeah, exactly. I remember back in the day. I mean, you probably remember, and Andrew Velasquez from the Angels. He has no business being a major leaguer, but I
No,
mean,
why
he
is he
brings
started at
stability to that.
shortstop? Yeah.
But back in the
Jose
day,
Rojas is a 25 home run hitter and plays pretty
yeah,
good shortstop. But Madden likes him
yeah.
defensively. I mean, the guy's batting what, like 160?
Yeah, but back in the day, kind of like there used to be almost a roster spot for pinch hitters, and they
Mm-hmm.
had good averages. I remember kind of Mark Sweeney was one,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a guy that used to
Random
be on the
player of the day
Dodgers.
right there.
Yeah, well, this one's even randomer. There was a guy that used to be on the Dodgers called Almedo Signs, and I
I
Oh,
remember he
I
remember
was like
remember
a
Sides.
him.
first
Yeah.
I
baseman.
remember him.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
Yeah.
just kind of looked up his numbers, and I mean he was like an 850 OPS guy that couldn't play the field, but I do remember every time he would come up to pinch hit, he was so clutch, and he was the guy that was on first base when I think the Diamondbacks hit a Oppo single, and then he couldn't field the ball, and it ruined Gagne's streak. But but that was brutal to watch. But regardless of say, it's like you're not seeing like true professional hitters, that can kind of take up a roster spot. Now you have the DH where it's just something a little bit different, but kind of a true pinch hitter you're no longer seeing, and I think that's what's leading to kind of some of the averages going down.
Right.
Interesting take.
Yeah, and then I don't know exactly when it started, but maybe something we didn't mention. You have the defensive switches as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
That
look
can
at Bryce
definitely.
Harper.
Yeah,
Bryce Harper went from like a 320 hitter to a 260 hitter overnight because they just put a guy where he hits the ball every time.
exactly. So that'd be definitely an interesting dynamic to continue to track. And but yeah, that's all we had today. As always, thank you guys for joining the show. Love picking your guys' brains, talking baseball for an hour. Just truly enjoyable. So thank you guys for your time.
All right, no worries. Happy
Thanks
to
for
be
having
here.
us. I could do this for 5 hours, man. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. For you guys viewing in and listening in, and thank you guys again. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like or subscribe button. Trying to figure out where it's at, but it's somewhere on there. Hit that like, subscribe button. Helps get the content out there and helps with the YouTube algorithm. And thank you guys as well for you guys listening in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all those audio-only platforms. So once again, this is Don Average Joe's, and thank you for watching another episode of the Average Joe Sports Podcast.